everyone. It's IRL. I'm here with Patrick Bennett and John Mazzoni of NFDomains. You guys do a lot. Tell me about it. Tell me about you. Let's start with you, Patrick. How did you end up here?
I'll try to keep it short. Basically, been a developer for decades. Worked lots of different kind of lower level systems development work in large enterprises, and then most recently at a very large cloud company. And got into blockchain through a long discussion, but there was some things that happened, like podcasts I listened to, people I talked to, that I got renewed interest. And the right things happen that get me to like really want to dig in deep and try, just research as much as I can. And at a certain point, late 2019, I'd say, and checked enough of the boxes for me that I started to dig in deep, running a node, looking at the source code, and then it became a side evening hobby sort of thing. And ultimately decided to leave my kind of corporate, career of many decades and take a chance on doing the blockchain stuff full time. And yeah, it's been pretty great so far, actually.
And John, how did you find yourself here? How did you find one another?
Yeah, it's a different story for everyone. I was an accountant out of college and I didn't like it. I always knew I wanted to do something else, but it gave me the kind of experience of operating a business because they just had no actual ability to run a business. So mainly when I stepped in there, I was doing a large majority of what a business owner does. And so I saw that and said, okay, I just need to make enough money to be self-sustainable to then launch my own business. And I know I'll be at least somewhat good at it. And so it was April 2021 when I left that position. And then I didn't really know where the business was going to be, what it was going to be in. But crypto had been a hobby of mine up to that point, mainly just trading and NFTs and stuff like that. And I never put it together that would be a good business for me to go into before I wanted to do like wealth management and stuff, because that's what I went to school for. And then it just fell into place. I was shit posting on Twitter and I met a person and then I joined their project. And that's where Patrick and I met on another project that we worked on. And that project fell apart and, all of us were sitting there, okay, let's start our own company. And so that's how Transaction Lab was born. And Patrick by far had the most experience out of our entire team. So he was just elected CEO, whether he wanted to be or not. And the whole team was forced to quit their jobs at that point because we needed to really buckle down. So I left my job and then Patrick left his job and then Gabe and Doug left their jobs. But so it was a progression, I would say.
And then we've got Gabe and Doug on the team as well. Can you tell me what they do?
So we have two UX developers. Doug and Gabe both work together on the front end entirely. And yeah, they've done an amazing job. I think our app is just fantastic.
Your app has been a game changer for me. NFTs have made it so much easier to just look around and know exactly what's going on. It's been a way to help avoid scamming recently. Like I do giveaways. It's always really great for that. I've had my Twitter account cloned before. And it's somehow given me like a sense of security, but it also has made it exponentially easier to send things around and set up swaps. How did you guys, I know obviously you might have taken some pointers from other naming services that exist, right? Like I think of the .coms.
Yeah, crypto naming services aren't new. ENS has been around for a while on Ethereum. And a lot of it at the simplest level is just about simplifying the account addresses. In Algorand, it's a 58-character account. And so obviously seeing that around, you're not going to read that off to someone on a phone or just type it out really quick in a text message or something. So that's a barrier unto itself in transactions. And so at the absolute simplest level, just having a friendly alias for that, almost like an email address for an Algorand account, is really useful. And yeah, that's one of the simplest features of NFTs, but it's still just that by itself is still really useful. And then at the same time, being able to go in reverse, where you have an arbitrary transaction on chain and being able to tag that in a sense with a name, even if that name doesn't actually have anything identifiable about it, maybe it's just a phrase, that can still be useful, right? Because now people can talk about, and then everyone can have that shared kind of knowledge of what they're talking about without having to mention like a 58 character address, right? So it can still be really beneficial even if it's not linked to an actual public identity. But then there's also a case where I have Patrick.algo where it's just, one of my NFT wallets, and I've got my Twitter handle in it, my Telegram, Discord, it's doxed basically. And that's useful too. So even with just having the address and the name, there's actually a lot of value there. But then once you also add a lot of additional things where you can have arbitrary metadata, arbitrary data stored with it, of which could also be privacy preserving. There's no reason you couldn't use some service that can independently prove who you are without revealing that data, that an attestation of that could be stored in your NFT. So I think it's interesting to see what people have already done with it. And I'm excited for the things people are going to do with it, particularly like with segments coming. That's pretty cool because you have the ability to expose as much or little information as you want. And also what you expose could still be privacy preserving, but it still all work within the framework of Algorand and be able to connect those dots for any arbitrary transaction. So it's really powerful.
It has so many uses, and I get a kick out of figuring it out. The other day, AlgoFan was like, IRL, maybe you should put your YouTube link in your bio. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. But it kept truncating it, which is a word I learned about stuff.
Yeah, Twitter will turn it into a T.co and all that.
And so I linked it to my NFDs. So now if you go to IRL.algo.xyz, it solved the problem for me in the middle of Costco, Patrick. Like people were messaging me saying, this link is dead, IRL, you need to fix this. And I was like, what do I do? And it popped in my head that I could hook it to my NFT.
I just tried it. Yeah, went to your YouTube channel. Very cool.
So John, I know you said you came from accounting, right? Most is interesting has insurance. How has that transition been for you, and what are you most excited about?
So transitioning from my old job to starting your own business is definitely a huge change, but it's changes in good ways. It's like changes to give yourself more of a voice at the table, and at least still you have some responsibility over what you're doing and some autonomy over what you're doing. I really like that. And I think I knew I would like that. But to step back a little, my old job was very like degen. Even though I was an accountant, it was for the cannabis business. So if you could picture that kind of environment, it was very startup-y. Like they were very scrappy and they do, whatever was hot at the time to make money. Those were the kind of people. So coming from that world to this world actually wasn't that big of a change in some ways. Like crypto is very scrappy in a lot of ways too.
Referring a little bit more to the autonomy users get and how they use their NFTs, not only from an investment standpoint, but a collector standpoint. Like I said, I was able to leverage the investment I made on an NFT that's making my life, like that money was spent to make my life easier, like Patrick was saying, as far as the identity portion goes. But then I had an issue and it solved that problem. That additional utility, I feel, is very DeFi, Web3 ethos.
Everybody talks about utility, right? But like it's a different thing to seriously deliver true utility to people. And we definitely feel like NFTs deliver true utility. It's not like a buzzword that we use. They actually are useful. As soon as you buy it, you can use it, in a lot of different ways. It's not just send and receiving algo. You could use the gallery. You could use the redirect like you did. There's lots of use cases for it that are immediate. It's not like we're promising that these utilities are coming, So.
Yeah. I mean, it's even useful for just like you were saying earlier, RL, is the fact that people can use it for giveaways and things. I think someone was just mentioning the other day that they got scammed where someone created a fake Twitter account that looked like the person who had won and was like, oh yeah, here's my information, but it wasn't actually them. Whereas if everyone just replied with their NFDs, then there's no confusion. There's no possibility of it going to someone else.
The tech piece of NFDomains breaks my brain. Patrick, I don't know how you made it possible to do what we do. For people who don't know about Algorand, we do have the opt-in feature. And the smart contracts, you basically helped and you developed the ARC-19 standard, is it right?
So yeah, ARC-19 is because I wanted to have a dynamic NFT that was created by the NFT contract itself that could be then assigned into the owner's account so that you'd be able to see that you actually own something. Whereas normally with smart contracts, it's just there's just bytes in the state of an account of a contract somewhere, and you don't really see it in any normal wallets or marketplaces or anything. Whereas if you held an ASA, if you held an NFT, then there's already all of these mechanisms in place to show them. So I wanted to be able to have an NFT that could show up like in Para or Algo Explorer, things like that, as being this thing that you owned. I wanted users to feel they purchased this and they own it and be able to see it, and not just I go to this website and it tells me I own it, right? So you feel like there's true ownership there. And then I wanted to make sure that the image for the NFT always reflected the image that you put into your NFT. So that required a way of having Algorand NFTs be mutable for their metadata as well as the image combined. And that's where Arc19 came into play.
I think it might have to do a little bit with your background, but essentially what you just said was, I wanted it to make sense, but there wasn't a way for it to make sense. So I made a way for it to make sense. And now we can all do it.
It was a problem looking for a solution, and there is discussions with some engineer at Algorand as far as different mechanisms. Some things I looked at, some of the IPFS developers were proposing for similar issues. Basically, Arc19 gives you mutable immutability, because you're always referencing completely immutable data. So it's still an IPFS, which is completely immutable, but you're just changing which IPFS data you're pointing to. And then at any point in time, you can still completely freeze an Arc19 asset and make it completely immutable. But because the history is on chain of those changes, also you can still actually walk the history of the image changes and all of that. I still want someone, there's times where we talked about doing it, but so much of the stuff we're working on, I still want someone to do like a GIF creator of all the Arc19 changes. There's the dynamic goannas that like every hour it updates the image based on Algorand price activity. And it's got different versions of it, like the 1 hour, the 7 day, all that kind of stuff. It'd be fun to do a video of all the changes to that asset as a played out video. So you could visually see the ups and downs of the Algo price. But for other things like Mostly Friends, they'll only go through 3 or 4 transitions. But you might have some Arc19 assets in the future that go through a lot of transitions. It'd be fun to have a visualization of that. But as I say, I ended up having a lot of discussion back and forth with Algorand engineers, ways to handle this. There was the discovery that wasn't really known to me that the reserve address in the Algorand ASA is technically just 32 bytes that the Algorand nodes themselves don't really care about. So upon learning that, then, okay, this is 32 bytes that can be used for another purpose, and 32 bytes ends up being the size of a hash that you would use to store on IPFS, for example. So it just worked out.
I think part of it is obviously we have Gabe and Doug that worry about the front end, which is what I experience as an end user. But I'm interested because you basically willed this into existence. Arc19 standard was the thing. You couldn't do what you wanted to do until Arc19 came around. What advice would you give to somebody who's interested in building on chain or getting into the world of Web3?
You learn by doing, I think. You learn the best by doing. Try to actually, you don't, it's not someone says, oh, I want to learn to play golf or something like that, and they go out there and they swing the club for the first time in their entire life and expect to be an expert at it. In order to build these things, in order to build this stuff, you actually have to start building applications. So, it might just be as simple as, find really simple things or examples that are already out there. Algorand has a lot on their site, the developer.algorand.org. They have tutorials and solutions. And some are complete full apps. There's even like small games and things. Start with those, understand how they work, deploy them, learn how to deploy them, learn how to debug them, and maybe try to come up with something, simple of your own to start with and build from there. But there's an active community in the Algorand Discord in particular. There's a lot of people who can help, maybe sometimes not as quickly as you want, because a lot of times we're busy building too. But there's definitely a lot of help available. And the Algorand Developer Relations team and others are extremely helpful. And it's to a great extent, that's basically their job to help developers. So yeah, there's a number of Algorand Foundation employees who will help with almost any technical issue or question people have.
You think Discord's probably the best way to get a hold of
100%. Yeah, there's there's forum.algorand.org, I think, that's like a traditional kind of BBS sort of style web forum. And some people like that, but it doesn't really get a whole lot of use. I think nowadays people prefer immediate communication, and the Algorand Discord is definitely the place to go for Algorand developers who have issues or questions.
What about for participants, people who just might want to, do you remember what it was like when you were getting into Web3?
An end user? Oh, then there's anything and everything. It's all over the place. It's Twitter, Telegram, Discord, individual Slacks. It's all over the place. Yeah, that's a whole another game.
Jump in.
Yeah, I think the Telegram side is more, we'll have people who are leverage trading, swing trading, like in some Algorand going down is exciting for them as Algorand going up, because they'll go back and forth between shorting it, longing it, and they don't care. So whereas Discord, I think you'll get more social channels of the NFT artists and things. Then you also might have more technical channels like the Algorand Discord. But it does feel like Telegram and Discord are different audiences, but they each serve a purpose. And then Twitter tends to be more broadcast, I think, usually.
Is there anything you want us to know about NFTs?
I've talked a lot about segments recently. That's the thing that's coming up soonest. And that's just the ability to, they're loosely like, people view them like subdomains. So if I had Smith.algo, then John.smith.algo, for example, but it's DNS world, a subdomain is entirely controlled by its roots. So if you had John.smith.com, for example, then really the Smith.com zone owner really has complete control of that subdomain or that entry. Whereas in NFDs, when a segment, as we're calling them, is minted, once minted, that NFT is completely self-sovereign and standalone. So the way it will work is if you're the owner of an NFT today, we would call all of those roots. So you have IRL.algo, for example. Once segments go live, then you as the owner of IRL will be able to mint segments off of your NFT for basically $5.algo plus $3. And as the owner, like I said, by default, all roots will be locked segments. So a locked segment, only the owner can mint off of their root. But then once you mint that name, you could do anything with it. So you could mint a segment for like someone in your family and then just transfer it to them, for example. You can also unlock a segment. And that's something that also the owner has to do. When you unlock the segment, you then set, in a sense, basically a market price for segments off of your root. So you could say, hey, if anyone wants to own John.irl.algo, then the price is X dollars, and you'll set it in dollars. And so you could say it's a $5 or something. And then anyone would be able to come to the IRL.algo like profile page, in a sense. There'd be a segments tab, and they would be able to mint a name off of it for whatever price you set. And then the owner of that root for an unlocked segment will get basically 75%. It's not really set in stone until it's actually released. But right now the thinking is it would be 75% of that. And then the platform fee, in a sense, is that 25% or that $3 minimum. So then basically you're able to act as your own kind of registrar, in a sense, where you say it's unlocked, here's the price, anyone can create as many names as they want, I don't care. And you're not having to get involved in that. And the key is once they've minted those names, they own them, and you have zero control over them at all. And so it's not like traditional subdomains where, as a parent, in a sense, you could rug those children at any time. The only control you have as the root is whether it's locked or unlocked. And if it's locked, only you can mint. And if it's unlocked, anyone can mint. But then once minted, they own it outright. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah, I could keep it locked so that no one ever bought porn.irl.algo.
Yeah.
You could keep it locked and curate your own names and offer them in, or you could unlock it and say it's a free for all, buy them at this market price.
Yeah. So obviously, brands, things like that would, like services, products would most likely keep it locked, but they might use that for their own services. It even becomes useful in additional identifications. I was talking to someone from Pact in our Twitter space yesterday, actually. So for example, when you receive the rewards from Pact by being in some of their liquidity pools, they'll kind of airdrop algo weekly. And that comes from a Pact address. Well, and I was just saying, hey, you should link that to your Pact.algo. So if you go to Algo Explorer or anything like that does a reverse lookup, it would say this came from Pact.algo. And you would know, oh, that's a Pact reward. And once segments come out, then it would make sense for them to mint, for example, rewards.pact.algo. And now it would be very obvious. You could tag specific transactions by linking the account that makes those transactions with a use specific account or NFT.
I love that. I would love to see all these random staking, whatever drops I get, be staking.project.algo or
Exactly.
LP rewards.algo or .project.algo. I hate to ask, but I'm gonna. When without an H?
It's in testnet right now. So you can go to your testnet NFT if you ever minted one while we're in testnet. You can go there now too. And there's a segments tab, but if you try to mint it, it'll force an auth on you because we're just exposing the UI on that to, if you know the contract calls, you could still do it. It's all contracts. We want to make sure the UI and everything makes sense before it's all rolled out live. So anyway, the answer to that is hopefully by year end. And at this point, I don't. But holidays tends to complicate things for people, and so I don't want to 100% commit, but I don't see why it would be an issue for it to be not by year end.
John, I want to jump back to you and ask you your advice for someone. You've got a lot of, they say hindsight's 20/20. You've been around, you've been building. Lay some wisdom down on us.
I'll keep it simple and short, and I'll say make good friends. Talk to a lot of people, and eventually you'll land on people that you click with, and they'll be able to help you out like way more than you knew was possible. Because not everybody's good at everything. So yeah, make good friends. And Twitter is probably the best space for that, in my opinion. Like Reddit is pretty good, but Twitter is better. Obviously, you're not going to talk like literally on Twitter posts, but I would say DMs and stuff like that can go really a long way.
Yeah, John and I are always cool about this. I hate Twitter DMs. I prefer Discord or Slack or something like that, or even Telegram. But like Twitter DMs, it's just a bad interface.
They definitely suck. Don't get me wrong. The interface sucks, but the people you meet on Twitter are great.
I'm living my best life on the blockchain, I think, largely in part to NFT. So I was really excited to get to talk to you both. John, is there anything you want to tell us about NFT that Patrick hasn't covered?
No, I think segments are really all we're focused on right now as far as features. So we're just getting that out first before we go on to promising even more things. But yeah, segments will be really big. You'll be surprised how people start using them. I think to see them as a reward is going to be very common. So buy an NFT, get a free segment off of this route. I see that happening a lot. And then for services themselves, actually giving NFDs to users to use, I think you'll see a lot of that too. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
I agree on the projects as rewards, the segments. I see that happening. I will say, if I can figure out how to link my YouTube with my NFT and verify my Twitter wallet, anyone can do it, for the record. If I can do it, anyone can. But you guys also have some of the best job aids, I think, in the ecosystem as far as documentation. So shout out to the UX UI guys that put it together. But there are little how-to videos that can get you through the Twitter verification or the Discord verification. I appreciated that it was little bites. I could register my Twitter one day, and then maybe when I felt brave, try to register my Discord handle. Like, the job aids were in pieces. It didn't seem intimidating. I could figure it out. I could utilize this tool that, however the hell Patrick built it, is far beyond me. But it's still possible that I'm reaping all these benefits from it. So props to you guys on the documentation and the user experience. Like, it's so good. I'm really glad I got to talk to you both about it.
Appreciate it. I'll use this opportunity to insert like a public service announcement of sorts, just to remind people that that all the data being stored is on the blockchain, is permanent and public, and to only reveal what you want to reveal, and to be careful. Sometimes people need to be aware of their transactions, and that if you send from account A to account B, then it's pretty easy for people to figure out that account A and account B are the same person. So just be aware of that. These are extremely useful, but you need to be careful and remember that whatever data you're attaching or putting into that is public.
These do allow you to choose how much you want. You don't have to verify Twitter, you don't have to verify your Discord.
You know, you can go to Facebook or wherever. A lot of times people have completely public profiles. You can go to my LinkedIn, and I don't know if I have it going way back, but it's like your entire employment history, right? It's all, in some cases, intentionally public because that is serving a use. But yeah, I think we've talked about it is the fact that in some ways our UI for a blockchain app, I think, is so good. There's a bit of a kind of disconnect, I think, a little bit for some people, and that it starts to feel more like a Web 2 app in a sense. And people may put more things in particular NFTs than they would if they were really thinking about this as this blockchain account.
Right. No, it's so easy to use. People forget they're on the chain. It's on chain.
Yeah, but like I said, again, there are times where that's actually really useful, right? Because it could be like, yes, I know that this NFT was created by John.algo, for example. And they can add social verifications to their NFT that makes it very clear that yes, here's their Twitter account, yes, here's their Discord, all these sort of things. And so any accounts that they link to that NFT, they can add new NFT series against new wallets, and it still automatically be associated with John.algo. Whereas all these different NFT marketplaces, they all have their own little independent system of who the creator is, and they're defining that. Whereas NFTs can already define that for you. A new one that launched recently, that there's no NFT there, and because they don't have a certain NFT, like certain NFTs I have don't even show what series it is or anything. There's nothing because that marketplace hasn't created a profile and collection for it. Whereas if they just did a reverse address, I would already know that, oh, it's this NFT, this creator, and then I would also know it's not a forgery. Right.
That's why we need you, Patrick. We need you to be like, you could do this and you should do this. And if you don't,
it's tough because we want everyone to work with us. We want to work with everyone. And it's like you want to, hey, this would be nice, or maybe do this, but you can't be really that forceful with it. It's like we can't say, you must change your platform to work this way. It's not for us to say that. But it does nag at me a little bit where I'm like, oh, this is so perfect for this. Would you please do this?
I feel like we are not far away from, how you get those I will never DM a link to you. I feel like we're at the cusp of, I'm never going to send you an actual wallet number because it would be so easy for somebody to get a vanity wallet with one digit different in the middle of a wallet address and it looked like mine. I'm never going to send you anything that isn't my NFT because that's mine. You can't fake it. I feel like we're getting to that point in the ecosystem where I just expect it. And as a cost, it's not really cost prohibitive if you go with a long name. NFTs are inexpensive.
Yeah, I mean, priced in dollars. So it's the floor price is $20. So it's basically priced $1 because the original choice was that we didn't want to say, oh, this is X, let's say 20 algo or 10 algo. And today it's $5, and 2 years from now it's $5,000. It's we like as big Algorand fans, we certainly would like to hope and assume that Algorand will over time appreciate and value as the ecosystem grows. And so we didn't want to have pricing be such that the price continued to grow in the future. And so by being like pegged to the dollar in a sense and then repriced in the current algo, that way the amount of algo required to purchase will continue to go down as the algo price went up. And then shortly after we launched, the Algorand price went down. So indirectly, the cost of the names went up. That was certainly never the intention. But
IRL was a lot more expensive than when I bought it on testnet.
In terms of the dollar amount, it was still the same.
Exactly the same. You got it.
So people who try to wait until algo goes up so the NFTs get cheaper, then, well, you're probably not going to get your name because someone else will probably get it. So that's the cost there.
I don't want to take up any more of your time because I really appreciate it, but you are two people I always love to hear from. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you guys are doing to make everyone live their best Web3 life. I feel like I can now talk to my parents and talk to my friends and say, let me get you set up with a wallet address, and it not be this looming longer than the English alphabet. It just makes sense. So thank you for making it.
Just think like your friends can buy you algo and send it to you. And hey, if anybody wants to buy me algo and send it to me, Patrick.algo, I will accept algo, free algo.
I'm opted into algo, so you can send that super easy.
I know, we're all opted into algo. It's a good call. It's a good point.
And I would just go one step farther. It would be faster to send it to me because IRL is less letters than Patrick. So
it's a good point, yeah.
Thank you so much for having us, Nadine. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you both. Thank you for taking the time, and give me some time. I'll get it edited and put up, but I appreciate the support all around.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
You can click subscribe